The ride that changed everything. Sometimes life teaches its greatest lessons in the most unexpected places, not in boardrooms, not in classrooms, but in the back seat of a car. This is a story about perception and misperception, about how quick we are to judge and how rarely we pause to ask, what if I'm wrong? It's a journey through ego, entitlement, silence, and strength. And it all begins with a simple Uber ride, a ride that didn't just transport a passenger across a city, but transported a truth across the world. A black man behind the wheel, a wealthy woman in the back seat. One wrong assumption, and the unraveling of everything she thought she knew. What she didn't realize was, this wasn't just any driver, this wasn't just any ride, and this wasn't just another day in the city. Which brings us to keynote 1, an ordinary ride, or so it seemed. An ordinary ride, or so it seemed. The city buzzed with its usual rhythm, honking horns, flashing lights, people lost in their rush. Amidst it all, Derek Cole sat behind the wheel of his sleek, black Tesla, blending in like any other Uber driver. Nothing about him screamed wealth or influence. He wore a plain charcoal hoodie, jeans, and a cap pulled low over his brow. He checked the app, one more ride before he called it a night. The name flashed, Emily Dorsey, Upper East Side, clean, crisp address, nothing unusual, just another fare. Derek took a breath, turned the wheel, and merged into traffic. He had no idea this would be the ride that would test not just his patience, but the world's assumptions. Because what started as routine would soon spiral into something extraordinary, igniting a storm that would challenge bias, reputation, and the very idea of power. A dangerous assumption. Emily Dorsey stepped into the Tesla with the kind of grace money often brings. Designer shoes, diamond earrings, and a $500 handbag. She didn't greet the driver. She didn't look at him. To her, Derek was invisible. Just another cog in the machine built to serve people like her. The ride was short, but her attitude filled the space. She barked orders into her phone, complained about her assistant, then muttered under her breath, "Why do I always get these kinds of drivers?" Derek heard it. He always did, but he said nothing. Then, as they arrived at her destination, panic exploded. "My wallet, where the hell is it?" Accusation was instant. "You took it," she snapped, pointing at Derek. "There was 10 grand in there, gone. I should have known better." No evidence, no hesitation. Just a harsh assumption made in seconds based on skin, status, and stereotype. And that single accusation would change everything. Cuffed without a question, sirens pierced the city's hum within minutes. 2 NYPD cruisers pulled up, tires screeching like they were chasing a felon. Emily stood on the sidewalk, breathless and dramatic, waving her hands like she was in danger. Derek remained seated behind the wheel, hands on the steering wheel, calm, but his heart pounded. The officers didn't ask questions. They didn't look at the app, the dashcam, or the lack of evidence. They just saw a black man and a frantic white woman. That was enough. Step out of the vehicle. One balked. "I didn't take anything," Derek said quietly, out now. Before he could say another word, cold steel wrapped around his wrists. Passers-by stopped. Phones came out. A silent crowd formed, already assuming guilt. Emily crossed her arms, her tone icy. "That'll teach him." Derek said nothing, but inside he knew this moment wasn't the end. It was just the curtain rising on something much, much bigger. Grace under fire in the back of the police cruiser. Derek stared out the window, a quiet storm behind his eyes. The flashing lights reflected off his skin, off the sweat on his brow, yet he remained calm, not broken, not bitter, just watching. At the station, officers tried intimidation tactics. Loud voices, fast questions, pressure. Still, Derek answered with short, clear replies. No anger, no panic. "You're awfully calm for someone being accused of grand theft." One detective sneered. "I'm calm," Derek replied, "because I know the truth." Meanwhile, Emily's voice echoed in the hallway. "He's hiding something, I know it. These people always are." And still, Derek didn't react. His quiet confidence unsettled everyone. He didn't act like a criminal. He didn't act afraid. He acted like a man who had seen this before and had chosen not to let it define him. Little did they know, he wasn't just composed, he was calculating. Waiting, because the truth, when revealed, would make the entire city stop and listen. The name that shook the room just as the officers prepared to file formal charges. A call buzzed on the sergeant's desk phone. His brows furrowed as he listened, then his face drained of color. The room fell oddly quiet as the name whispered through the precinct like a secret no one was ready to hear. Derek Cole, the sergeant repeated aloud, almost disbelieving. "Yes," said the voice on the other end. "Release him immediately. He's not just any man. He's the Derek Cole." The detective leaned in. "Wait, as in Cole Tech, the tech billionaire?" "Yes, Forbes listed, founder, CEO, undercover social philanthropist. That's him." The officers exchanged stunned looks. In an instant the narrative shattered. The poor, humble Uber driver wasn't poor or ordinary. He was one of the most powerful men in the country. They hadn't arrested a thief. They'd humiliated a billionaire. The silence that followed wasn't just awkward. It was seismic. The room had just turned from an interrogation into a reckoning. The undercover billionaire, as they removed the cuffs, Derek slowly stood, adjusting his jacket with quiet dignity. No theatrics, no ego, just the kind of composure you only earn from enduring storms your whole life. "I built $1 billion empire from nothing," he said calmly, facing the officers who had misjudged him. "But tonight, I wasn't testing technology, I was testing humanity." He looked toward the mirror, knowing Emily was behind the glass. "You see, I go undercover to see how people act when they think you're beneath them. No assistants, no suits, just me and a car." Gasps echoed behind the glass. One officer swallowed hard. "My dashcam recorded everything." Derek added, "Her call, her bag, her lie." The truth wasn't just revealed, it was detonated. What Emily had done wasn't just humiliating, it was public. Viral, worthy, and Derek wasn't going to hide. He wasn't interested in revenge. Just the truth, and now the world was about to hear it loud and clear. A mission in disguise for Derek. This wasn't just a ride, it was research. A project that began not in the boardroom, but in the streets. He had stepped away from Cole Tech's glass towers and stepped into an Uber driver's seat to experience the world through unfiltered eyes. Not just to observe behavior, but to feel it. Every insult, every cold glance, every assumption. It wasn't the first time someone had treated him as less because of how he looked, or what they thought he didn't have. But now, he wasn't just documenting it, he was compiling it, studying it, preparing to unveil a report on unconscious bias in everyday life, using real interactions, real prejudice. What happened with Emily was the climax of a hidden study on judgment. And now, with video footage, receipts, and witness accounts, he had undeniable proof of how status and race still dictated perception. It was no longer about tech, it was about truth. Proof that spoke louder than lies inside the precinct's media room. Derek calmly handed over a USB. "Watch the footage," he said. "The truth doesn't need defending, it just needs to be seen." The video played Emily on a call before entering the car, saying, "I'll leave the cash in my office drawer for now." Her voice clear. Her tone casual, her bag shone untouched in Derek's car. No theft, no foul play, just her own forgetfulness. Now exposed, the room was silent. Officers watched with sinking faces. Emily, watching from behind a screen, went pale. The sergeant turned to Derek. "We're so sorry, sir." He nodded. "Don't apologize to me. Apologize to every person who gets treated like a suspect just for existing." The truth was undeniable. The video became evidence, not just for Derek's innocence, but as a mirror to a broken system. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't needed to. The facts were louder than any accusation, and now the world would hear them. When the world flipped the script, the footage hit social media within hours. News outlets scrambled to report the story. Uber driver falsely accused, revealed to be billionaire tech mogul in disguise. The narrative flipped like a coin in midair. Emily, once confident and self-righteous, now faced a tidal wave of outrage. Her law firm suspended her. Comment sections erupted with fury. Hashtags trended. #justice for Derek. #ride of reckoning. #billionaire in the backseat. She issued a public apology, but it was hollow, dripping with legal polish. The world had seen her unfiltered. Her downfall wasn't because she accused a billionaire, it was because she judged a man by his uniform, his skin, and her own prejudice. Meanwhile, Derek remained quiet, graceful. He didn't press charges, he didn't sue. His silence was more powerful than any court ruling. In a world screaming for vengeance, he showed the world the strength of restraint. Legacy of the ride. Derek Cole stood on a TEDx stage weeks later. No Tesla, no hoodie. Just truth. He shared his experience, not to shame, but to teach. I rode with strangers, not to trap them, he said, but to see them, and to see how they see me. He spoke of humanity, perception, and the invisible weight carried by those judged on sight. The audience sat breathless as he concluded. Empathy is the richest currency we'll ever earn, and it costs you nothing to spend. The story that began as a false accusation ended as a global conversation. Schools, companies, even police departments use the footage as a case study. Derek didn't just rewrite the narrative, he built a legacy from it, a reminder that sometimes the most powerful ride of your life doesn't come with luxury. It comes with truth, and for millions that ride was just beginning. The ride was never just a ride. As the world watched and reevaluated, Derek Cole quietly returned to his life, not as a victim, but as a catalyst. He didn't need revenge or applause. His message had already done what it needed to do. The truth had driven itself into the hearts of millions. Emily faded into the background, her name now a cautionary tale. But Derek, he became something more, a voice without shouting, a lesson without a lecture, proof that grace is stronger than hate, and that dignity doesn't come from wealth. It comes from how you carry yourself when the world tries to strip it away. And perhaps the greatest irony of all, the story ends exactly where it began, with a man behind the wheel of a car driving through the city, humbly observing a world that still hasn't learned how to see. Because for Derek Cole, the ride was never just about the destination, it was always about the lesson left behind.